Let's talk Tanya for the 14th of Teves of a leap year. In yesterday's Tanya, we spoke about the battle between the godly soul and the animal soul. We said the godly soul and the animal soul are comparable to two kings, both battling for sovereignty, supremacy in a small city, both of them looking to conquer the city. And we are that small city. And we have an animal soul, the godly soul, both of them are jockeying and battling for to be able to take control. And we're talking here about the desires of the godly soul. So the godly soul wants that the mind should be filled with holy thoughts, which leads us to having holy feelings, which leads us to holy behaviors. In terms of the holy feelings, in today's Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says there are two different types of possible, or two different levels of love that one can experience for God, and the animal soul wants both of them progressively. The first level, the lower level of love for God, is a love which is called a ahava kirish beyesh, which is a love which is like a blazing fire. Fire represents the idea of yearning, of desire, of thirst. And that is the love that's experienced by someone who is not yet experiencing God, because you're still feeling that distance, you're feeling that desire, you want, there's that thirst that you have for God, that fiery thirst. Now that love is very powerful. And when a person experiences that love, it's enough to vanquish the animal soul and to cause the animal soul to be suppressed, and its desires, its feelings would be suppressed in the face of this incredibly powerful love and longing that a person has for God. But then there's an even higher level of love. And this is the ultimate ideal, the ultimate desire of the godly soul. And that love is what's called a ava betanugim, a pleasurable love, or also known as a ava kamayim, a love which is compared to water. Like water is tranquil and serene. Water is associated with pleasure. That's the love of someone who not only desires God and yearns and longs for God, but actually is experiencing God and taking pleasure in God. Now that love, it's a much calmer love. It is so much more powerful because it is characterized by pleasure, and because the animal soul is ultimately about pleasure, so this higher level of love has the ability not only to suppress the feelings and desires of the animal soul, but actually to transform the animal soul to holiness, and that it also should desire only holiness. As we'll see in next chapter, these two levels of love are the ones that are mastered by the incomplete tzaddik and the complete tzaddik respectively. The incomplete tzaddik has the lower level of love, the fiery love. The complete tzaddik is the one who masters this higher level of love. And then the Alter Rebbe, after he concludes the conversation about what the godly soul wants, he ends off with two lines. And he says, however, the animal soul, what's its desire? After we have a page and a half where we're describing what the godly soul wants, the animal soul's desire is the exact opposite of what the godly soul wants. We don't need to describe its desires, because whatever the godly soul wants, it wants the opposite. However, it is, as the Alter Rebbe says, l'toivas ha'adam, for the good of the person, because the purpose is that the person should overcome the animal soul. And the Alter Rebbe then makes reference to the analogy of the prostitute, which is brought down in the Zohar. What is that parable? So in the Zohar, it talks about a king who has a son, and the son is very refined. The son has wonderful midas, wonderful character traits, but the king feels that the son has never been tested because the son has grown up in the royal palace and in perfect company. So the king summons a prostitute and says, I want you to entice my son to act in an unbecoming fashion. Now this woman has to do what the king wants her to do, and she has to do it properly, and she has to do it put in all the effort necessary. But at the end of the day, what does she want? She doesn't want that the prince should succumb to her enticements, because she is a subject of the king, and she knows that will make the king happy, and will make the king give her extra compensation and reward, and also will make the king reward the son more, is if the son resists her the temptation. The same thing is the animal soul. Seemingly it's coming and it's trying to entice us, and it shows us all the temptations of this world, but ultimately the animal soul also is only an agent of God. It is a tool of God. What does the animal soul really want? It wants that you should withstand the temptation and you should not listen to it, which is very interesting and psychologically such an important point. You know, we feel sometimes torn by the struggle. My godly soul wants me to do this. My animal soul wants me to do this. And here we have these two equal forces that are both struggling for me. And we have to stop once in a while and we have to think that it really isn't two forces that are struggling with each other. That's what it seems like. In actuality, they're both in agreement. The godly soul wants me to be godly, and deep down, the animal soul also wants me to be godly. It is only doing what God wants it to do in order to increase my reward and to give me the ability to serve God and put in the effort into that, which would not be possible without the animal soul. So, we have here the godly soul, the animal soul, we have here the struggle between them, and now the question is, what are the possible outcomes of this struggle? We're going to find out there are three possible outcomes. The first outcome of the struggle we will discuss in tomorrow's Tanya.